10 spine-chilling and sinister encounters at haunted park ranger stations in Appalachia revealed. Evelyn's heart raced as she read the dread-filled words on the fading pages of the ranger logs. Missing, it whispered. Disappeared without a trace into the gnarled depths of the woods. For years, tales of rangers lost to the shadows echoed through the land, intertwining with the chilling folklore that haunted the dark corners of Appalachia. She could almost feel the whispers inching closer, the weight of the stories pressing down on her. For a single mom in her late 30s, fleeing a messy divorce, this wasn't what she had in mind for the start of a new beginning. But here she was, at a ranger station swallowed by the looming trees, shadows shifting like specters just beyond the window. Clara, her sarcastically witty teenager, strolled past with a scoff. If this place is so scary, where are the ghost hunters? She flipped through the logs, a smirk on her face as the world outside darkened. Thick clouds rolled in overhead, cloaking the landscape in an unnatural gloom. Maybe the ghosts made them take a permanent vacation, she joked, but the uneasiness that gnawed at Evelyn's insides was far from a laughing matter. It wasn't long before the jovial banter slipped away, overtaken by an uncomfortable silence that swallowed them whole. As night crept in, the air turned dense and the trees seemed to lean closer, forming a living wall that trapped them within. "Mom, can we explore the woods?" Clara's eyes sparkled with mischief, yet the moment her mother hesitated, a cold tingle skittered down Evelyn's spine. "Just for a bit?" Clara pressed, and with weakness threading through her determination, Evelyn found herself nodding, drawn in by her daughter's enthusiasm. The woods were enchanting at first, full of rustling leaves and the distant call of birds settling down for the night. But as they ventured deeper, an uncanny stillness enveloped them. Shadows danced thrice in the corners of Evelyn's eyes. The trees loomed large, their twisted branches like skeletal fingers reaching out, beckoning them. The deeper they went, the more the sun departed, the smile fading from Clara's face while unease crept into Evelyn's heart. Suddenly, a snap. A quick rustle that pierced the silence. Evelyn's breath hitched. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. But Clara, ever the adventurous spirit, pulled ahead. "Chill, Mom. It's just a squirrel." Anxiety gripped Evelyn, but she fought to stay calm. Then Clara's laugh echoed back, teasing, wild. "Come on," she called with a confidence that made Evelyn's heart flutter in fear. "Clara!" she shouted, a warning almost lost in the shadows. Panic brewed as daylight slipped away. "We need to go back now." But Clara was already fading into the darkness, a mere blur swallowed by the trees. When night finally wrapped around them like a cold shroud, that familiar dread returned. The night twisted into something sinister as Evelyn turned to head back. The station door stood ajar, creaking gently as if waiting for her to cross the threshold. Shadows beckoned, and the shadows answered. They rustled somewhere behind her, a low whisper from the depths of the forest. "Clara!" she cried out, her voice cracked with desperation. Silence. An oppressive heaviness settled in the air, a tangible fear closing in. "Before we continue," a voice in her head insisted, "I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Breath quickening, she scanned the encroaching dark, dread pooling in her gut like poison. What was out there? In the whispering darkness? Could it be folklore, or was something lurking just beyond the treeline? As the air thickened, an unsettling chill gripped her. All that remained was the question that clawed at her insides: where was Clara? And what had the woods taken this time? Evelyn's heart thundered in her chest as she glanced over her shoulder, instinctively stepping backward into the ranger station. The door swayed gently, whispering her name with the creaking sound of chipped wood and rusted hinges. "Clara!" She called again, more desperate this time. The air stilled, her voice swallowed by the shadowy stillness of the woods. A chill crawled up her spine, a bone-deep sensation of being watched. The forest had transformed into a realm of dread since they stepped inside. The tales of missing rangers flickered through her mind, teasing her with every rustle of leaves. She fought to shake them away, but visions of dark figures hidden behind trees pricked at her imagination. "Stay focused," she whispered to herself, arms wrapped tightly around her waist. She peeked out into the darkness, squinting to see through the cavernous structure of the woods. The last rays of twilight struggled against the creeping night, dimming rapidly. The twisted branches overhead seemed to block out the stars, weaving a dark tapestry that made the ground beneath her feel like quicksand. A sudden burst of laughter pierced the heavy silence. "Clara!" Evelyn bolted toward the sound, fear and relief colliding within her. "Clara! Where are you?" She called out again, her voice echoing off the trees. Each word felt feeble, lost in the oppressive weight of night. "Over here, Mom." The voice was far too far. It urged her to run, the familiar tone now laced with an unsettling undercurrent. "Stay where you are," Evelyn shouted, panic lacing every syllable. She stumbled forward, the underbrush clawing at her legs. Every step was an effort, a struggle against the unseen presence that seemed to foster her dread. The air grew heavy, thick with anticipation, as if the woods were holding their breath. "Stop!" she gasped, her breath hot and ragged. Shadows twisted and contorted, darting from corner to corner of her vision. Were they real? Or simply figments of her overactive imagination? But then she heard it again. Clara's voice, clearer now but insistent. "Mom! Come quick! You have to see this." Leaves crunched underfoot as she hesitated for just a moment. Something gnawed at her heart, urging her to turn back, to barricade herself inside the ranger station. Instead, against every instinct screaming at her to flee, she pressed on, following Clara's voice as it wove through the trees like a siren's call. "Just a little further," Clara coaxed. The clearing opened before her, a haunting sight bathed in starlight. But no Clara awaited. Just a jagged stone altar, dark and slick beneath the open sky, surrounded by circles of wilting flowers. Frantically, she scanned the space, a sense of foreboding creeping through her newfound clarity. "Clara!" she cried out, a desperate wail now. She stepped forward into the clearing, a sickly sense of déjà vu washing over her. The echoes of the missing lost in time chilled her core. Then, from behind an ancient oak tree, Clara emerged, eyes wide with something terrifying that made Evelyn's skin crawl. But it wasn't her daughter's face that horrified her, it was the figure looming behind Clara, a silhouette etched against the night like a dark shadow straight from Folklore. Hollow eyes locked onto her, the edges of its mouth curling into a cruel grin. "Mom," Clara said, her voice sounding different, dull, mechanical. Evelyn's heart fell into her stomach as she realized something was wrong. "What have they taken from you?" Evelyn muttered, terror brimming over the edges of her mind. As the form stepped forward, the reality around them began to twist into nightmares. The forest seemed to close in, whispering secrets that threatened to unravel her very sanity. The weight of uncertainty hung heavily in the air, shadows flickering as if the forest itself watched with bated breath. Where was Clara? And what awaited her in this clearing, a hungry thing from the depths of myth hidden in plain sight? With each heartbeat, a haunting truth sank deep into her bones: they weren't alone out there. But Evelyn had to find Clara first. The ancient trees seemed to laugh as she felt their gnarled roots pulling her deeper. Would she be the next to disappear? Would their fates echo in the logs, another tale of someone who ventured too far? She had to decide. Stand and fight or flee into the dark unknown. An unsettled whisper echoed from the trees, "Choose wisely." And with that chilling reveal, the stillness broke, threatening to swallow her whole. Evelyn's breath froze in her throat as the figure lurked just behind Clara, a shadowy mass, sinuous and wrong. The forest buzzed with malicious energy, wrapping around her like a vice. It was no figment of her imagination. This thing was real. She could feel it siphoning her courage, her will to fight. "Clara, come back." Panic surged, pushing her forward, desperate to pull her daughter away from that unfathomable entity. Get away from it. But Clara stood frozen, her expression vacant, as if the forest had hijacked her very essence. The figure swayed slightly, a grotesque ballet of dark limbs, its laugh a low and bone-chilling rumble that echoed among the trees, sending vibrations through the ground. Evelyn's heart raced as it beckoned her closer with a crooked finger, the shadows behind it deepening, shifting like a living cloak. "Mom, you need to see. It knows everything about us," Clara said, her voice now a haunting echo bouncing off bark and bramble, stripped of warmth. "Clara, no." Evelyn's voice erupted, fierce and raw. The moment hung heavy, a thin thread of dread connecting them. Evelyn surged forward, the air thick with dread. Each step felt like wading through molasses, as if the forest itself conspired to hold her back. The altar loomed before her, slick with dark moisture that gleamed unnaturally under the fractured moonlight. It pulsed alive and ominous, beckoning. An unsettling thought sliced through Evelyn's terror: what if Clara had invited this thing into their lives? What if it was no mere monster of the woods but something far deeper, ancestral? Her mind raced, a whirlwind of memories and fears colliding. She had always told Clara the stories myths meant to scare kids away from wandering too far. Those old stories, did they open doors better left shut? "Mom, trust me," Clara's voice persisted, an eerie calm settling over her as the dark figure glided closer. Its eyes two voids bore into Evelyn, penetrating her mind and twisting her thoughts. "No!" she shouted, defiance igniting within her. "You're my daughter. You're coming with me." Evelyn lunged, her arms outstretched. As she stumbled forward, the world shifted, time stretched, and suddenly, Clara vanished. The figment of her daughter dissolved amidst swirling shadows, leaving nothing but a whisper of laughter that echoed cruelly. Evelyn reeled, heart pounding, sweat trickling down her spine. The shadows seemed to dance wildly, spilling out laughter like a dark tide. Where had she gone? The clearing spun around her as she frantically searched for any sign of Clara. "Clara!" The desperation in her voice cracked, the sound echoing into the emptiness, swallowed whole by the forest. The entity advanced, looming larger, its intentions palpable, an insatiable hunger for something she couldn't understand. A voice erupted from the shadows, low and dripping with malice: "You shouldn't have come here, Evelyn. Now you'll pay the price." Panic seized her. Their fates intertwined, a dark promise bound to this cursed ground. Had Clara lured her into a trap, an offering to darkness? "Choose wisely," the voice echoed again, a taunt laced with malice, reverberating through her mind. Suddenly, the moon illuminated the altar behind the figure, revealing stark runes carved into its surface. Each one seemed to pulse with life, a heart beating in time with her racing pulse. The forest shifted, the ground trembled. She had to make a choice: fight for her daughter's soul or flee into the dark unknown alone. But could she abandon Clara? As the shadows gathered their strength, Evelyn edged closer to the altar, her fingers trembling above the runes. What had she awakened? The trees whispered secrets older than time, warning her, begging her to turn back. Would she uncover a family curse in the heart of darkness? Or had she just awakened something beyond her comprehension? And then, a small voice pierced the growing madness. "Mom!" It was Clara again, faint and desperate. "Clara!" As the weight of haunting choices pressed down on her, Evelyn could barely breathe. But the shadows weren't finished. How far would Evelyn go to save her child? And who would she become in the process? Evelyn's fingers hovered above the runes, the air thick with dread. Each carving pulsed under her touch, as if it were alive, breathing a heartbeat that synchronized with her rising panic. "Clara!" she cried, straining to pierce the suffocating shadows. The nasty laughter echoed through the trees, as if the forest itself relished her torment. "Mom, help!" Clara's voice fluttered like a candle's flame in a tempest, weak yet insistently calling out from the void. Evelyn's heart pounded in her chest, a wild, frantic rhythm. How could she have let it come to this? The figure shifted, its grotesque limbs unfurling like the tendrils of a nightmare, stealing the air from her lungs. "You must make a choice," it intoned, its voice low and thrumming like the distant rumble of thunder. Evelyn's mind raced. What was the choice? She could feel Clara's essence flickering like a dying star, an ethereal light in the encroaching darkness. The weight of history pressed down upon her, the stories she'd once told Clara, the calls of the woods that turned to whispers of doom. Had she inadvertently awakened this horror? "Do we dare disturb that which has been laid to rest?" The voice coiled around her, syrupy and seductive, as if tempting her with the thrill of the unknown. With every instinct screaming against it, she moved closer to the altar. She gazed into the runes, each marking a promise of power, a sliver of an ancient curse. This was not merely about saving Clara, it was about confronting what lay buried within her own bloodline. What horrors had her ancestors invited? "Mom, please, I can't see you." Clara's voice echoed again, more desperate now. It shattered Evelyn's resolve momentarily, anchoring her to the reality that this was her daughter, her flesh and blood. "What do you want?" Evelyn shouted into the darkness, rage boiling over the fear. "What is your price?" The entity grinned, a fraction of light slicing through the shadows as it leaned closer. "The price is simple, my dear. You can reclaim your daughter if you sacrifice something dear to you. Choose wisely." Sacrifice. The word sent a tremor through her body. It meant loss. A harrowing price. Too many questions flooded her mind. What could she willingly give up? "Mom." The voice was fading, pulling Evelyn from her own thoughts. She felt the edges of her sanity fraying as she took another step. The forest loomed tightly, roots wrapping around her feet, pulling her deeper into its embrace. "No." She yanked her foot back, the sensation of something tugging at her insides. Clara's laughter danced like fireflies, ethereal and beautiful, yet laced with a bitter edge. "I can't leave you." "Then stay," echoed the figure, its voice morphing into Clara's through a cruel trick of the shadows. "Stay with me forever." Panic rose in her throat as clarity struck. She had to embrace the horrifying truth before her. They were intertwined. Fighting to save one another could only lead to destruction. Evelyn's breath quickened as she stepped back, nearly faltering as the forest glared at her in frustration. She was not just facing an entity, this was a reflection of her fears. The promise, the price, it was her. As the shadows thickened, Evelyn had to make her stand. Did she choose to fight, to unleash the dark depths of her ancestry, or surrender to the forest's call, a call that might drown her hopes and Clara along with it? "Clara." A waft of wind rustled through the trees, stirring echoes that felt like taunts. The whispers intensified, becoming a cacophony of cries. "Your choice has consequences. Do you dare?" The moonlight flickered again, revealing twisting paths that led away from the altar. Evelyn's resolve hardened. There was no turning back now. Could she face what waited in the shadows? In that moment, as despair gnawed, a flicker of hope ignited within her. Maybe the runes could provide the answer. Evelyn reached forward, her heart racing and confidence shaking in the face of darkness. But what would she awaken? As the shadows writhed in anticipation, Evelyn focused on the inscriptions, beckoning for clarity. The ground trembled beneath her, and the trees shivered in expectation. What truth awaited within the ancient words? Would it lead her to rescue Clara or plunge them both into a deeper nightmare? Evelyn's fingertips brushed against the moist symbols, their warmth pulsating with a life of their own. A surge of energy coursed through her, whispering secrets long forgotten. She felt it, the ancient chants buried deep within the fabric of her being, a resonance that echoed with power. Choose, the entity urged, its voice a sinister melody harmonizing with the rustling leaves. Evelyn cast a frantic glance around her. Shadows seemed to stretch and coil, pulsating in rhythm with the sinister heartbeat of the forest. The air was charged, thick with the weight of unspoken promises and lingering fears. Clara's voice pleaded again, a fragile thread reaching through the consuming dark. "Mom! Don't leave me!" Evelyn's heart clenched. She summoned the last flickers of her strength and plunged deeper into the fray of choices and consequences. What was something dear? Could she rip away a piece of her heart, or was there a darker truth she needed to confront? With determination coursing through her veins, she focused on the runes. The engravings glimmered, as if awakened by her resolve. She mumbled each sound softly, feeling their vibrations reverberate within her. The shadows twisted around her, emanating an anticipating hush, swallowing the cacophony of the forest as if it too awaited her decision. "Sacrifice, what if I sacrifice the truth?" she whispered, a thought spurred by desperation. Laughter erupted from the figure, a cacophony that mingled with the rustle of the trees, echoing in her ears like doom's cruel promise. "Ah, sweetie, the truth is a heavy price. Will you pay it? Will you face what is hidden?" Evelyn's breath hitched. The truth of her lineage was monstrous, whispered of only in superstitions and hushed tones over family dinners. But what if she could overturn the curse? Is it worth Clara's life? The thought clawed at her as she surveyed the shadows surrounding her. The figure leaned closer, delight dancing in its eyes, the anticipation palpable. Ah, but the truth might shatter more than mere lives, they might unravel history itself. Shivers raced down her spine. Evelyn clenched her fists, drawing strength from the hope flickering within. "I will bring her back." The words fired from her mouth like bullets, seeking to pierce through the horror looming over her. With one last desperate look at the altar, she pressed her hands into the symbols. The energy surged, invading her mind, twisting through her memories and connecting her to her ancestors, echoing their triumphs and failures. Visions erupted around her, dark rituals, screams, endless night. The blood of the forsaken pulsed in her veins, beckoning her to understand its terror. "Then it shall be done," the entity declared, a devious grin spreading across its ghastly visage. Suddenly, the ground beneath her quaked violently, and the runes flared to life, illuminating the anxious forest. Clara's voice surged aflame within the whirlwind of images, each one dragging Evelyn closer to the core of her family's nightmares. As the truth crashed in, invading her senses, horror gripped her lungs. What if Clara was not merely a victim? What if she was entwined with something darker, something lurking in the shadows of their lineage? With terror wrapping around her like a vice, Evelyn's mind spun as her environment warped and twisted, darkness pooling like ink, ready to swallow her whole. What awaited her at the end of this unveiling? What price would drag her irrevocably into the depths of despair? The laughter echoed again, mocking her resolve, spiraling into a frenzy. The runes pulsed wildly, demanding her acknowledgement of a truth she wished to deny. With a tremor of fear lacing her determination, Evelyn steadied herself for whatever lurked beyond the veil of shadows. Could she reclaim Clara, or instead introduce them both to a deeper darkness than either could bear? The world imploded around Evelyn, the very air thickening like sinister fog. Shadows twisted into grotesque forms, looming closer, their whispers merging into a frenzied symphony echoing the pulse of her heart. The runes surged with an eerie glow, illuminating a scene that twisted her stomach, a sepulchral gathering of figures swathed in darkness. Their faces moved in and out of the light, each one a featureless mask of silent torment. Yet, beneath their eerie facade lay a hunger that called out to her, reaching for her deepest fears. "Face your bloodline, Evelyn," the entity hissed, voice now resonating in the marrow of her bones. They await your decision and your debt. Clara, her voice trembled, the name a fragile lifeline woven with panic. She staggered back, but the ground swelled beneath her, churning like some monstrous beast beneath the surface of placid waters. The shadows encroached. They seemed to pulse, throbbing in time to her heartbeat, as if responding to her fear and feeding on it. Every flicker of light pulled her deeper into a memory, a childhood nightmare she'd long buried. The stories whispered at family gatherings, the warnings that echoed through her mind. "Mom! Please!" Clara's voice cracked through the clamor of darkness, raw and desperate. The sound snapped something inside Evelyn. She couldn't abandon her daughter, she wouldn't allow shadows to claim her. The entity's laughter cut through her thoughts, more discordant than the rustling leaves. "You think you can save her? This curse binds you tighter than you know. Embrace your heritage, or lose everything." With a grunt, Evelyn pressed palms against the symbols carved into the altar, forcing herself to remember the heartache, the blood. She could almost see the faces of those lost within the fog of her lineage, twisted and malicious, urging her to understand the truth they bore. The air crackled as she spoke, voice growing intense. "I choose to know." The shadows recoiled, churning angrily. The forest around her screamed, thrusting the whispers into a cacophony. It was as if a dam had broken, sending forth a flood of visions, each more horrifying than the last. Women chanting, children sacrificed, blood offering for dark deities. She gasped, struck by the weight of her ancestors' greed. But amid the chaos, a spark ignited within her. "I refuse to let this define us," she cried. Rock-solid resolve steadied her trembling form. She could feel the power coursing through her, the weight of the lineage connecting her to every harrowing choice made before her. The ground shook again, the shadows writhed as if in pain. The energy pulsed harder, dazzling like the sun breaking through dark clouds. "Then dance with the truth." The entity screeched, thrashing wildly, its frightening grin twisting into fury. Evelyn's heart raced. She screamed Clara's name, pouring all her love and determination into the call. She needed her daughter back, needed to break the curse, or face an even darker fate. The shadows surged again, swallowing the light. Fear consumed her, clawing at her insides. She could feel Clara slipping further away. "I'll do whatever it takes," Evelyn shouted, feeling her strength melding with the shadows, daring them to consume her spirit. With one last desperate push, she concentrated, drawing the collective power of her ancestors. A violent surge erupted from the altar, intertwining their fates with hers. The forest howled. Was the choice hers, or was it already made by the haunting legacy she couldn't escape? Then silence. The shadows recoiled, and from the abyss, a figure materialized. Clara. Fragile yet resolute, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, trembled against the darkness edge. "Mom, help me," she whispered, terror lacing her voice. Evelyn lunged forward, but the ground pulsed violently again, splitting between them in a rift of bleak night. She halted, panic gripping her heart once more. "Evelyn. The truth holds more than you know. What will you sacrifice?" The entity hovered close, breath chilling. As darkness writhed around them, the question lingered heavily between mother and daughter. Could she truly save Clara? Or would her determination drag them both into the nightmare of their ancestry? Evelyn felt the ground pulse beneath her feet, the solid earth turning into an unsteady tremor, echoing the chaotic rhythm of her heart. The darkness that separated her from Clara felt thick as molasses, suffocating and alive. Desperation clawed at her throat as she fought to reach her daughter, yet every step she took felt as if it sank further into the abyss. "Mom." Clara's voice broke through again, barely louder than a whisper but heavy with anguish. Those words twisted and coiled around Evelyn's heart, sending a stab of panic through her. The shadows stirred, eager and insatiable, feeding off the dread drinking her in like a fine wine. What will you sacrifice? The entity's words rattled in her mind, an endless echo that refused to fade. What did that even mean? What could she offer that had any weight against the darkness? With each heartbeat, she could feel the ties to her ancestors tightening, chains forged of blood and fear. "Clara, I'm coming," Evelyn shouted, and yet each sound felt swallowed by the thick black air. The shadows writhed ominously, threatening to pull Clara deeper into their hungry maw, but Evelyn wouldn't let go. She gritted her teeth, a fire igniting in her chest. She refused to succumb, she wouldn't let this cursed legacy take her daughter. "Embrace your lineage," the entity teased, its voice curling around her with cold seduction. "You know your power, it runs through your veins. It can free you." "No." She spat defiantly. The memory was so sharp, the stories told to her as a child, whispered with fear, the ghostly warnings of the women in her family. The sacrifices that were made, the unholy pact that bound them all together. But this session distorted her thoughts, resolved to turn her will against her own flesh and blood. "Mom, please." Clara's voice cracked again, this time piercing through the haze of shadows that surrounded Evelyn. "You have to choose. Choose us. Choose me. What sacrifice would it be? Could she face the darkness that sought to ensnare them if it meant gaining Clara back? The weight of that decision landed hard on her shoulders. The shadows undulated with glee, anticipating the turmoil swirling around her. The familiar tales flared in her mind, of loss, of choices made under the heavy burden of fear. Wasn't she repeating the cycle anew? What kind of bloodline demanded such a cost? "I choose love." Bitterness seeped into her words as she thrust her hands toward the rift separating them. The glow of the runes surged again, illuminating her resolve. Her will shifted, her breath coming quicker. But the darkness hissed with rage, swirling erratically around her, pushing back against this inner light she dared to conjure. Tendrils lashed out, striking her with whispers of doubt of her strength, her worth, and even her capacity to love fiercely enough to shatter their curse. "True love only leads to despair." The entity cackled, delighting in the tumult unfolding. Evelyn felt her resolve falter, but then, in the depths of the encroaching horror, she caught a glimpse of Clara's face, frightened, terrified, yet still fighting. Every ounce of her being flared, igniting her spirit. "I'll give up everything," she shrieked, and the shadows recoiled, the joyous laughter fading. "I'll sacrifice my past. My heritage. You can't take us." In that defiant moment, the very fabric of the nightmare trembled. A pulse, like the heart of the forest, echoed in response. The shadows thrashed, twisting angrily at the edges of her vision as the runes flared brighter, almost blinding. Yet at the heart of the chaos, the splitting ground heaved again. "What will you truly sacrifice?" The entity coiled around her, voice now a deadly whisper against her ear. Evelyn felt the boundaries of reality bend and warp, fear rushing to consume her. As the last tether threatened to break, she caught a flicker of hope. Would it be enough? Or would the darkness drag them under, silencing their bond forever? The question hung in the air, thickening once more as silence fell. Would sacrificing the past bring them salvation, or merely ensure their descent into the darkness? As Evelyn's declaration hung in the air, the shadows surged, as if reeling from an unexpected blow. They rippled and twitched, their malevolence momentarily stunted. Her heart raced, flooding her with adrenaline. She could feel the pulsating energy of the runes beneath her fingertips, glowing brighter with her vow. It was a beacon in the encroaching darkness, but how long could it fight back the tide? "Choose wisely," the entity spat, its voice seeping into her mind like poison. The winds howled, and for a moment, Evelyn thought she could catch glimpses of the lost souls trapped in the void, their faces etched by despair. Vagabond spirits, forever lost, twisted like branches in a storm, begging for her attention, making their case for sacrifice. Each one a reminder of the curse, each one a token of what she could lose. Clara! She cried, straining against the darkness that threatened to smother her, yet still glimpsing the desperate face of her daughter flickering through the void. The image burned bright against the encroaching shadows, a stark reminder of what was at stake. "Feel the weight of your choice," the entity whispered, its breath icy against her skin. "Can you bear it? Can you forsake the bond you've shared all these years?" The words left a taste of ash in her mouth, and doubt weaved through her like a serpent. But this was not only about her. This was about Clara, pulling herself from the edges of despair. The shadows were closing in, and Evelyn felt their icy tendrils wrap around her limbs, tugging and whispering sweet nothings that twisted in her heart. "Together, you can be more. More than a mother, more than a daughter. Embrace your heritage." "No!" Evelyn shouted again, barking her defiance at the swirling chaos. "My love is more powerful than your darkness. I won't let you turn us against each other." Suddenly, a rumble surged beneath their feet, like the angry growl of a beast awakening from slumber. The ground heaved violently, and Evelyn stumbled, trying to keep her balance. "Mom, don't give in." Clara's voice lanced through the noise, laced with determination. "I'll take back what's mine." Evelyn couldn't let herself be terrified. This was a battle, and every fiber of her being surged stronger. She could feel her ancestry whisper, a chorus of women who had fought and fallen. But they weren't a burden, they were her strength. "Your lineage is a chain." The entity screeched, furious now, as the shadows roiled around her, thick and relentless. "What can you offer that I do not already possess?" In a moment of rage-laced clarity, Evelyn screamed, "I offer my blood." The shadows recoiled as if struck, a momentary confusion shrouding them before they launched forward again, coiling and twisting with renewed fury. But Evelyn pressed forward, hands still extended toward Clara, the runes beneath her glowing fiercely as if responding to her desperation. The ground seemed to crack, fissures snaking outward, threatening to swallow them whole. "Together!" she roared, willing every part of her spirit to ignite, drawing Clara's essence toward her. Yet just as she felt a pull, a tug of warmth reaching for her, the ground beneath her split wide open. The shadows clawed at her, seeking to drag her down, seeking the beacon of her devotion. "No!" The ground trembled as Clara's scream echoed anew, a raw sound that reverberated through the air. And then silence fell once more, thick and suffocating. The ground swallowed their pleas, but Evelyn felt something shift, an unseen force beginning to turn the tide. The dark entity seemed to falter, merely waiting for her next move. "What will you give?" it asked, its voice a whisper that sent shivers down her spine. Evelyn locked eyes with the shadowy void, fear mingling with determination. Because in this moment, she realized there was a third option, an option that could turn the tide of the impending darkness. But what price would come with it? Would it be a sacrifice beyond imagination, one she wasn't ready to pay? The ground trembled once more, interruptions echoing through the silent void. Could she find strength where there should have been none? And at what cost? As darkness pressed closer, a decision loomed on the horizon, one she could not hide from any longer. Evelyn's breath quickened, each inhalation a battle against the cloying shadows. The moments trembled in a hollow silence, and she could feel the pulsing weight of her blood promise simmering beneath the surface, an offering teetering on the edge of a razor. "You want my blood?" she whispered, her voice heavy with realization, unclear whether she should feel fear or certainty. "What will you do with it?" The entity's laughter echoed around her, a chilling sound that clawed at her resolve. "Oh sweet Evelyn, your blood is but a bargain in my grand design, a key to the door you dare not open." The steady rhythm of her heart sounded deafening now, a relentless drum demanding to be heard. She yearned to hold on to that warmth from her daughter, but the shadows dug deeper, enshrouding her in their cold grasp, siphoning away her strength. "Focus!" Clara shouted from the depths of the void, her voice brimming with urgency. "You have power. Use it." A fire ignited within Evelyn, feeding off her desperation, illuminating her path. She had felt her ancestors' strength before, but now it surged wild and untamed, a tempest threatening to break free. Tension seeped into her bones, charging her blood with fury, a force ready to explode. Enough! She bellowed, feeling the runes beneath her fingertips pulse like a heartbeat of defiance. I will not falter. I am not just a relic of the past, my love is alive, it's a fire that will swallow your darkness whole. At her words, the shadows twisted violently, a symphony of rage threatening to engulf her. The air crackled with sinister energy, but Evelyn stood firm, a lighthouse against the storm. She remembered the faces from the void, those lost souls, but instead of sorrow, she felt strength. They were not just ghosts, they were echoes, reflections of choices made, lives lived. Your power cannot touch what is eternal, she declared, the words a shield against the anguish that encircled her. She began to weave her own magic, pulling threads from her lineage, memories of love and pain pouring from her very essence. This was her inheritance, the tenacity of mothers, the courage of daughters. The shadows recoiled, shivering under the heat of her light. But the entity wasn't finished. With a snarl, it surged forward, a hurricane of darkness fueled by rage, trying to extinguish her flame. You dare defy me? It hissed, its form swirling into a grotesque amalgamation of despair. Just then, as if the world shifted, a piercing cry rang out, the authoritative voice of 1,000 lost souls, rallying behind Evelyn. It was an unearthly chorus that rose to meet the challenge, filling the void with strength, at once giving and demanding. Join me! Evelyn bellowed, feeling the shadows thrum around her, uneasy. This was her moment. Sharing her bond with all those who had come before, she tapped into an ancient power that surged through her veins, a tide ready to consume the darkness. Evelyn's surroundings twisted as light erupted from within her, raw and blinding, washing over the sinister landscape. For the first time, she felt her past intertwine with her present, a tapestry sewn with blood and sacrifice, love and loss. But just as the shadows began to retreat, a chilling chill snapped through the air. The entity loomed large, its form shifting, eyes glowing with malice. You may have light, dear Evelyn, but even the brightest flame can burn out. Trapped in a battle where every second felt eternal, Evelyn felt the grip of despair clawing at her throat. She was close, so close to reaching Clara, but the shadows surged below, undeterred, prepared to strike with vicious intent. Hold on, Mom. Clara's words echoed like a siren in her ears, urging her forward, giving her strength amidst the chaos. Could she really turn the tides? Or would the darkness consume them both, leaving behind nothing but hollow echoes? As the shadows lunged once more, the looming question sparked in her mind: what truly awaited beyond the darkness? What price would she have to pay as she stepped into the light? Evelyn felt the blinding light pouring from her, a force forged in desperation, love, and ancestral rage. It surged up from her core and wrapped around her in tendrils of incandescent energy, pushing back against the recesses of the unyielding darkness. The entity shrieked, its voice a cacophony of rage and confusion as it fought to keep its grip on her. Clara! She roared, calling her daughter's name into the chaos. I promise I won't leave you behind. That promise fueled her fire. The shadows writhed, recoiling from the light that illuminated her heart. It was more than energy, it was a connection to every woman who had come before her, all the ones who had battled despair and loss, and yet still survived. They were part of her, strangers and yet family, a collective will binding their souls. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from the altar, the runes glowing brighter than ever, illuminating the entire forest. The trees shivered and swayed in rhythm with Evelyn's heartbeat, amplifying the warmth consuming the cold. She could feel Clara's essence resonating with her. Mom! Clara's voice, cutting through the storm, rebounded around them, urging her to move. Reach for me. You have the strength. Evelyn extended her hand as the shadows coiled closer, but she refused to falter. She pressed forward, each step a defiance of the curse that sought to bind her. The light pulsed around her, a living barrier against the relentless grip of darkness. "Let her go!" Evelyn shouted, determination igniting her voice. "I want to let you take my child." She concentrated hard, calling forth the power coursing through her veins, her bloodline, her love, her strength. The shadows trembled as the energy intensified, fused with the memories of her ancestors' sacrifices. The entity hissed, its form shifting angrily, trying to close in on her. "You're a fool, Evelyn. Your love cannot protect you from the truth. The darkness runs deeper." It lunged, lashes of shadow reaching out to engulf her. But Evelyn felt the weight of love solidifying her resolve tighter, fueling her spirit. With each heartbeat, she channeled all the pain and sacrifice, the laughter and joy from memories shared with Clara. Together, they would rise against the shadows. "I choose light. I choose love. I choose us," she cried, voice ringing true and clear. The air shimmered as her light pushed back against the darkness, exploding outward in a wave that cut through the shadows like a sword. The whispers of the forest rose into a roar, the spirits within the trees and roots awakening to her fight. They surged forward, amplifying the brilliance that enveloped her. "Together!" Evelyn shouted, feeling a fierce grip take hold as the rift began to close. "Together, Clara!" Finally, amidst the swirling shadows and light, she spotted Clara, flickering like a candle's flame, caught between hopes and despair. "Mom! I'm here!" Clara cried, fear in her eyes but rich with belief. The space between them narrowed, the shadows writhing angrily around them. Drawing on every last bit of strength, Evelyn dove into the torrent of shadows and light. The entity shrieked in fury as Evelyn crashed through its defenses, her heart glowing with a fierce light that could not be extinguished. "Take my darkness!" Evelyn shouted, and before she fully understood what she was doing, she made the ultimate sacrifice. She willed her demons the pain and fears, the chains of her ancestors to release their hold. The darkness recoiled, horrified by her audacity as it was met with a wave of pure energy. In that blinding moment, kaleidoscopic visions of her family flashed before her, bridging their lives, joys, and heartbreaks. The shadows twisted frantically around them, their strength disintegrating as they were met with such pure intention. "Mom!" Clara's voice cut through, and Evelyn felt the last vestige of her uncertainty fade. She reached out, grasping Clara's hands, finally pulling her close as the world around them shifted in a tempest of light and darkness. In a kaleidoscope of swirling emotions, relief, terror, unwavering love, Evelyn felt a final surge from the innermost depths of her existence. She felt the shadows shatter, the weight of the ancestral bond that had oppressed them now evaporating into the night, dispersing into the ether. They were free. Together, they emerged from the chaos. Clara was whole, warm, and alive in her mother's arms. They stood together, side by side against the backdrop of the shimmering forest, cloaked in the evident afterglow of their triumph. A gentle breeze brushed past, carrying the fragrances of what felt like liberation. The shadows had lost their grip, the whispers of the forest now replaced with a serene calm. In this moment, neither Evelyn nor Clara felt burdened by the weight of the past. They were unshackled, reclaiming their lives and forging ahead into the brightness. With a deep sigh of relief, Evelyn turned to Clara. "Let us go home," she whispered, heart full. "Yeah, let us get out of here," Clara replied, her voice saturated with relief and love. They began walking back toward the ranger station, hand in hand, feeling the light behind them drive away the darkness that had once surrounded them. As they neared the door, the memories of the woods, the ancient runes, and the shadows faded behind them. They knew the forest might still whisper secrets, but the fears bound to the tales had finally been quelled by their unwavering bond. Together, they stepped into the next chapter of their lives, a bright future washed in light, a potent realization of freedom and the strength they created from the darkness they had faced. And in that moment, they understood, they were not simply survivors, they had become torchbearers of truth, love, and renewal. If you enjoyed this thrilling conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Every click helps us reach more fans just like you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. What an incredible journey, right? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion, because true fans must unite to support the channel. Let us keep the stories alive. Click now.